Our nerdy MC, Hiraku, wakes up earlier after dreaming of his death in his world. He goes out and greets everyone, noting that he didn't expect to ever live such a dream life. As a soul, MC faces the god that watches over the world. The god notes that he lived 39 years, but he had a cruel fate. He was betrayed by others and then fell ill with a terminal disease. The god decides to give him a second chance with a body that won't fall ill. The god finds it's his mistake for his awful life and wants to apologize and asks him if he has any wish he can also grant him. Thinking for a bit, Hiraku states he wants to try farming. He watched a show about it while he was sick and he wishes to try it. Additionally, he isn't good at getting along with others and wants to go farming somewhere where there aren't many people. The god states farming isn't his jurisdiction, but makes a call and arranges the things. He gets permission from the agriculture god to bestow upon Hiraku the power of the almighty farming tool. Hiraku wakes up in a forest and is happy to be healthy and be able to move again. He decides to start his farming life there and wonders how to use the almighty farming tool. The tool magically appears in his hand and Hiraku starts digging, noting that he isn't getting tired at all. He likes how soft the soil is and notes he can grow good vegetables there. Hiraku then realizes he first needs to worry about food and water and goes looking around. He sees a big tree and decides to make it a landmark and use it as a camp. He goes around looking for a river, but is unable to find any source of water. Hiraku then decides to dig and find underground water. He summons his tool, which turns into a shovel, and soon after he started digging, he ends up finding water. While preparing the ground around the tree, Hiraku looks for food, but is unable to find anything. Hiraku then looks at a smaller tree which eventually will get in his way, and decides to chop it down now. He summons his tool as an axe and almost gets crushed by the tree as he ends up cutting it with a single swing. He turns his tool into a hatchet and then cuts the tree into pieces. Before he realizes it, it is getting dark, and he turns his tool into a magnifying glass, but the sun sets. Having no way to start a fire, he carves a hole into the large tree and hides inside. Hiraku cuts some plates and cups. He realizes the moon provides enough light for him to see, but then sees that there are two moons and guesses he must be in another world. In the morning, Hiraku continues to clear the ground around the large tree and cuts some more trees. He feels it's time to get something to eat, and at that moment a large monster rabbit attacks him. But Hiraku manages to kill it in a single swing with his tool. After eating it, he decides to make a toilet and digs a large hole with an entrance, a gas release hole, and a tree trunk as a seat. As he couldn't relax, he ends up creating a small cabin around the toilet seat. MC then proceeds cultivating the land and imagines what he could cultivate. As he is done, he realizes he doesn't have any seeds to plant anything. The next morning, he is surprised to see that some plants are already starting to grow, and wonders if it's due to the tool. He decides to build a wall and a ditch around the fields to protect them from the rabbits and other beasts. It takes him a few days to complete it, but he manages to kill another rabbit. The plants grow faster, and MC is hoping that they are something he can eat, and don't turn up being decorative flowers. Hiraku then builds a hut, but as he has a hard time lifting the wood up, he digs inside of it, to give himself more vertical space. One day, he sees two dogs outside. As they look a bit rough and not aggressive, he invites them in and gives them some meat from a boar he just killed and wondered what to do with all that meat. He notices that one of them is pregnant, and after they ate, she started having birth pain. Hiraku realizes she is giving birth and wonders what to do. He ends up letting them stay in his house, while he goes back into the hole for the night. In the morning, he checks on the dogs and sees that the female gave birth to 4 dogs. He gives them some more meat to celebrate it. Hiraku believed the dogs would leave after that, but they decided to hang around. As they like the hut, Hiraku decides to build himself a new house. Hiraku ends up growing some tomatoes and enjoys them. The dogs do some hunting and protect the premises for Hiraku. He decides to name them Kuro and Yuki, male and female. The small ones he names Kuroichi, Kuroni, Kurosan and Kiroyan. MC wants to build a storehouse, more vegetables and many other things. Elsewhere, A girl wants to cross the mountain, but a man tells her it's dangerous and as she heard of the forest of death. The other side of the mountain is known like that, and it's because it's full of monsters. God decides to check on Hiraku on how he is doing as he is sorry for giving him a life fit for a sinner. As he checks on him, he realizes he put him in a dangerous forest known as Forest of Death, as realizes he made a mistake yet again. Hiraku had realized that while preparing the ground for farming, if he wishes to plant certain plant, that plant magically starts growing. Hiraku is happy with his life and knows it's thanks to the gods that bestowed it to him. He makes some statues of the two gods so that he can thank them. Hiraku decides to try planting some fruits. While they grow, he plays with the dogs, realizing that without them he would feel much more lonely. As the dogs also help him find his way back to his camp, Hiraku is able to travel further into the forest and eventually finds a river. He decides to make a tunnel and get water to his place, but since it's a 30-minute walk distance, he will be digging for a while and decides to first make a toilet near the river. Hiraku figures that if he turns his tool into a wheelbarrow, he can run around with it and not get tired because of the tool. Hiraku also expanded his crop fields, adding more veggies. He grows soybeans and wants to eat them, but doesn't have salt. Time passes and the weather starts to get cold. Seeing snow in the mountains, Hiraku wonders how cold it gets here. He decides to start preparing for the winter and gathers some food and wood. A giant spider shows up, however it's friendly and makes a handkerchief for Hiraku. The spider then decides to live in the large tree and loves eating potatoes. In exchange, the spider makes him clothes using the animal pelts Hiraku gives him. Gaining cloth, Hiraku feels more civilized as he now has a good bed, curtains and clothes. Hiraku decides to name the spider Zabuton. The winter starts. Zabuton no longer comes down the tree and Hiraku guesses he is hibernating. Hiraku feels a bit lonely, but finally the summer comes. The small dogs had grown up and one day they left, however they soon returned with partners. Soon, Zabuton showed up as well and also had kids. As there are now more mouths to feed, Hiraku decides to expand his crops again. Zabuton rings the alarm and Kuro leads Hiraku into the forest. Kuro takes him to a child girl who is naked and entangled in a spiderweb. The dogs and spiders are wary of her, but as she asks for help, Hiraku decides to help her. As he gets close, she jumps and bites his neck and then grows up into a young woman. Hiraku wonders if she is a monster. The dogs then attack her and as they beat her up, she turns into a small girl again. Hiraku wonders if she is their enemy as she sucked his blood, but the girl explains she isn't, and she had to do it to recover her strength. As she used too much energy, she can't maintain her adult form and clothes. Hiraku wonders why the dogs attack them, and she explains she wanted to take one of them. Feeling bad for her, Hiraku lets her suck more of his blood so that she can recover. Hiraku takes her to his place. The girls are surprised to see a crop field in the forest, but also so many new crops. Hiraku gives her a tomato, and she ends up enjoying it and wants to try some other crops as well. The girl reveals her name is Rururushi, a vampire, and is excited to be able to try so many new veggies. Ru explains she is researching medical plans and ran away as she got in a fight with some nobles, who tried to steal her research. Since they kept chasing her and she heard of this forest, she decided to hide in it for a while until things calmed down, but also hoped to find some new plants to inspect. She is surprised that Hiraku is living in this dangerous forest and even tamed the beasts. He is also using some strange magic which allows him to create some tools, all of which excites her even more. Hiraku realizes how rare his chance is as this is the first person he came in contact with. As it may take even more to meet someone else, Hiraku decides to ask Ru to stay and live with him. Ru tries to explain that there are people after her, and she is a vampire, but Hiraku doesn't care. Hiraku explains he came here to live alone as he can't deal with people, but now realized he doesn't want to live alone and isn't sure how much more he can handle. Ru agrees, explaining that she doesn't really have a place to go, although she feels embarrassed by his proposal. The next morning, Ru turns a little younger. Hiraku wonders why and she explains that in this form, He will restrain himself from touching her, and Hiraku agrees. Hiraku explains he wants to grow some sweet potatoes next. He also tells that Ru is the first villager. Kuro disagrees and Hiraku then corrects himself, stating she is more like the 30th villager. Ru wonders if Hiraku can grow some medical herbs. MC agrees to try. Ru states they need to find somehow the right seeds, but Hiraku states he doesn't need seeds. The story continues onward with a brand new day. Hiraku enjoys the morning breeze and looks forward to another day of farming. While he's the ideal of a morning bird, Ru wakes up as well, still acting drowsy and tired, the perfect ideal of a night owl. This also makes sense as Ru is a vampire, so they are not fond of the mornings. Despite that, Hiraku still enjoys having Ru living with him as she has helped him tremendously in various ways, like setting up lights with her magic, helping Hiraku mine the right places for salt, and embarrassing him in the process because he passed by the salt while digging many times. For today's agenda, the two will check on how the fruit trees are growing. Ru looks forward to that, but needs to freshen up first, then she'll meet him there. The two see the trees and observe that the trees are growing as expected. Ru asks Hiraku if he transplanted the trees to the soil here, and he did because the fruit trees need more time to grow than the vegetables. Hiraku shares that the fruit trees he planted are orange and peach, and he hopes to plant chestnut trees sometime in the future. Ru shows her support for Hiraku by looking forward to seeing how the fruit trees turn out when it's time to harvest. The two spend their time peacefully outside by drinking Ru's herb teas. Hiraku enjoys the herb teas Ru makes, but does prefer green tea instead. Hiraku remembers a fun fact that oolong and black tea are all made from processing the same leaves. But the drinking time has cut short, as there is an announcement made long away, prompting Hiraku and Ru to come to see what's the matter. After running to the sounds of the alarm, the two see an angel bound and defenseless against a pack of wolves. The angel desperately apologizes to the pack of wolves for attacking them first, pissing them off in the process. Hiraku looks at this situation as déjà vu, as the angel screams for them two to help her, and they have no choice but to help. After freeing the angel from her restraints, she uses her magic to clean herself up and give her a cleaner appearance apart from her ragged clothes. She then quickly notices Ru and identifies her correctly as she explains that she was trying to find Ru and take her back with her. As the angel screams her voice, she was then attacked again by a pack of wolves. After saving the angel for a second time, the three have a talk at Hikaru and Ru's residence, so they can break the ice as strangers. The angel ridicules Ru for choosing the forest to hide in out of all places, as the angel did not enjoy her experience as she immediately got ambushed by wolves. Ru sympathizes as that is the same experience she went through her first time entering the forest. In fact, Ru learned the hard way that the wolves are resistant to magic, that is even if you manage to hit them, which is unlikely. This seems to be the one thing they can get along at, how they almost got ended by the wolves as magic users. The angel asks Ru who is the man with her, and she introduces her to Hikaru, her husband. The angel is surprised after seeing Ru's blushed expression after saying that Hikaru is her husband, and looks at Hiraku to confirm what she says was true. Hiraku does say that Ru is right, and the angel was honestly not expecting that. Neither did Hiraku, as this was the first time Ru has called Hiraku her husband. The angel forgets to introduce herself and tells Hiraku that her name is Tia, an angel obviously. Hiraku asks if that means Tia serves God, and she proudly accepts that as a symbol of pride. But Ru calls Tia out, and says that Tia's race is simply a warrior that is more muscle-brained than one who is clever or intelligent. Tia defends herself as there was a brief period when angels were considered an object of worship. Hiraku asks a question, why is Tia chasing down Ru? Tia answers that there is a bounty on Ru because of all the damage she caused in town when she went on a rampage. Ru admits her crimes are true but tries to shift the blame onto a snob noble because they wanted to keep forcing Ru to make medicine and drugs for them. Their list of demands kept on piling up so much, Ru felt like she needed to teach them a lesson. But Tia reveals a personal flaw within Ru, her short temper. She always spends her time researching strange medicines and concoctions, so if something minor bothers her, she becomes a Megaman and starts explosions. Ru argues back that it was only an accident, and Tia is being overdramatic. But Tia restates her original claim that she shouldn't have blemished the noble name by causing havoc upon the town because of her own personal problems. The drama becomes lighter as Rue starts becoming more humble and admits her faults, and how she's in this situation because she was trying to run away from Tia, who is stronger than her. She also admits that the first sign she saw the limit of her strength was when fighting the wolves. Rue comes up with an idea and asks Tia if she wants to live here with them in the forest. Rue gives Tia a tour around the crop fields and the orchard, and introduced her to Zabuton, the spide. Tia may not like spiders as she immediately faints after meeting Zabuton. Tia asks if she'll have to do farm work, and she complains why an angel like her should dirty her hands doing commoner work like farming. Hiraka helps Tia harvest the crops and helps her learn that farming may be fun. After a long day of hard work, Tia rewards herself by trying a strawberry and finds it very sweet and delicious. After getting to experience a typical day of farming, Rue asks Tia again if she wants to stay with them, pressuring her that she can handle the work on her own. Tia agrees, and the trio spends quality time farming, trying out the foods they harvested, and Tia shows off her magic by summoning a golem to carry the hard lumber while Rue uses her telekinesis magic to carry them. Rue commends Tia for being able to quickly adapt to farming life. Tia asks if Hiraka is considering expanding their crops, but he mentions that they're operating at full capacity, so there would be no time to harvest them unless they have more people to help with the harvest. Even if they can harvest all of that as a team of 3, there's another problem with how they'll be able to eat all those foods on their own without wasting them. Hiraka then sees the new puppies and how their horns are growing. It turns out that Kuro and Yuki's puppies also had puppies, so overpopulation may be a problem. To fix this, Hiraka expanded his land to build a dog area. His worry is that there are so many puppies, he may not be able to give out and remember all the puppies' names. But for Zabuton's children, her children spun web parachutes to fly with the wind and explore their new lives on their own. In addition, Tia also says that she will leave for a few days, but does promise to return. She did keep her promise as when she returned, she came with 7 high elves. As the elves make their introductions, Hiraka observes that they are all related, and the elves wish to live with him, Rue, and Tia in the forest. Tia shares their sad backstory of how they used to have a home, but many of them were sent out to their deaths in the War of Humans. Now that their race is scattered, they could not find a proper home to call their own. Tia supports this idea, as she said that they could help him with farming. Hiraka allows this as long as they are all able to get along. But first off, Rue introduces the elves to Zabuton, and they faint right after. Rue also introduces the elves to the dogs, and they faint a second time. It seems that Rue enjoys seeing people's reactions after showing them to beasts that are somehow tamed. Now that everyone knows each other, Hiraka needs to build more homes for his new friends. The elves work on building a big house for them to live together. So they started by making a ditch and wooden fence, and next building their own toilet and garbage disposal area. Then the elves start to build the house from the bottom up, and it turns out that they know a lot about construction, so Hiraka helped them by digging holes, leveling the ground, and gathering lumber for them. The outcome was a big success and it was so extraordinary. Hiraka grows a bit jealous of the little hut he calls home. Inside the big house, when a person enters, they see the living room that also doubles as a dining room, so the elves could work on things together or eat together. On the far left and right sides of the house are storage areas. The second floor is where their individual rooms are. All lighting across the house is controlled by magic. Looking atop the second floor at the happy elves, Rue and Tia, brings a smile to Hiraka's face, hoping that this could be a home where the elves can feel safe and at peace, like they always wanted. When the elves try farming, they quickly adapted to it as they enjoy doing the labor of a farmer. When Hiraka talks with Ria, the leader of the elves, so he can learn more about them, he finds out that they use fire and eat meat. He is shocked by this because he always thought that elves are one with nature, not relying on fire that can hurt the forest. Someone who rises at sunrise and sleeps at sunset, someone who eats berries and fruits from the forest, and someone who is a tree hugger and does not like to wear anything metallic like armor. Ria lectures Hiraku to not follow that stereotype, and to stop thinking that the forest is a heaven land, as Mother Nature can be crueler than one believes. But Ria does want to thank Hiraku again for allowing them to live with him, and he feels the same way thanks to how helpful and resourceful they are. The elves continue to show their capabilities by building a furnace to do blacksmithing and baking foods like bread. As everyone is enjoying the bread that the elves made, Hiraku feels motivated to expand his wheat fields, but he asks Rue if his home's land is someone's property, even though it should have been asked a long time ago. It turns out that the land may belong to the demon lord. Rue reassures Hiraku that since his home and settlement were not supported by outside factors, the property can be claimed as his thanks to his self-sufficiency. Later in the evening, Rue, Tia, and Ria start having a conversation about Hiraku and comment on how incredible he is. A human who was able to tame all those infernal wolves and a demon spider. Ria wonders if the soil that he planted all his crops on is capable of producing the high-quality products they have made all this time. But Rue doesn't know how to answer that, as she never asked him that question. Tia chuckles at how one of his weaknesses is his lack of knowledge about this world, as he always thought of elves as a race that didn't use fire or eat meat. Not only that, but Hiraku doesn't know much about angels either after meeting Tia. If he doesn't know much about those races, it may be a possibility that he may not know more about the other various races in this world. They call him a mysterious fellow as despite his lack of knowledge about their world, he is capable of doing magnificent things like befriending violent beasts, something not an ordinary person could dream of accomplishing. As the girls continue talking throughout the night, Hiraku spends his time crafting more wooden dining utensils. As he finished on his cup, he then has a thought about how he hasn't progressed on building a waterway yet. Sometime in the road, he will have to build that waterway, especially if the population in his land will increase. Now that he has more help from the elves, maybe building that waterway can now be a possibility. But for now, he goes to sleep as he knows he'll need the energy for what tomorrow brings for him. Morning rises, and Hiraku takes advantage and heads to plow the fields. As he summons a gardening tool, he is greeted by his demon spider, Zabuton. Hiraku asks Zabuton what's the matter, and he points to what he caught, a giant bee. Hiraku asks if Zabuton will eat its prey, but Zabuton has other ideas. Instead, Zabuton wishes to keep it as a pet. Although it may not be wise to have a bee that is the size of a human as a pet, as humans already freak out when a bee passes by them that is the size of a coin. But Zabuton reassures Hiraku that the bee will no longer pose a threat as it has promised to behave and not fight back. Now that Zabuton added a new member to the family, Hiraku can now start to do his daily work as a farmer. Hiraku started out by building a little house for the bees' nest near the orchard. The bees make themselves at home as they were able to build a big nest inside in about 10 days. That is thanks to the workaholic worker bees building their new home that quickly. But something seems odd to Hiraku. The worker bees are average-sized, but only the queen bee is the most gigantic one out of all of them. But no matter. Hiraku has an idea. If he could leave the bees in the little house, he could possibly harvest the honey that they will produce. But they would need to pollinate first. The crops in the fields do have flowering plants, but Hiraku would need to plant a flower garden nearby the bees for easier access. As of now, Hiraku is a farmer, a landowner, and a beekeeper. Tia comes to see what Hiraku's up to, only to fly away in fear of the bees. Hiraku doesn't seem to mind them. In fact, he seems unfazed as the bees are literally on his body without a beekeeper's suit. Maybe he's built differently. It isn't surprising after all the things he's done before. Hiraku then moves on to dig up a huge hole. When Ria stops by and asks Hiraku what he's making this time, he said that he's building a reservoir, or at least he hopes it will be one day. Hiraku's plan is to draw water from the river through a waterway, but he's been pretty busy with other stuff so he never came around to building it. Ria asks Hiraku what is his progress so far in building that reservoir, and he admitted that he hasn't even reached far enough to decide what he's going to make it out of yet, so he's nowhere close to finished. After taking note of the geography of Hiraku's land, he sees that there is a distance between his land and the river. But now back to the reservoir materials. He always thought that waterways were made out of stones. However, since he lives in a forest, he would have a hard time finding stones. There is a surplus of trees, so maybe he could make it out of wood. That could work, but the problem is that since it is a long waterway, the gaps in the wood will cause a lot of leakages. Hiraku has an idea. He compacted dirt using the almighty farming tool, and it is as hard as concrete, so this will be a good alternative solution. This solution is greater than expected. Since Hiraku removed a lot of dirt to make that big hole in the ground, he now has a surplus of it. So, Hiraku puts the dirt to use and went into mass production mode, creating more parts of the reservoir to connect with each other. As a plus, Hiraku built an intake gate for the water at the top of the waterfall. When he built the foundation using dirt, he also placed the parts for the waterway on top of that. The elves help with this project by handling the basic foundation work. As the elves do that, Hiraku focuses on sealing the seams and fortifying the foundation. And thanks to the power of teamwork, the construction was completed a lot faster than Hiraku initially expected. They test out their new reservoir, and they see their creation sending water their way, so it worked. With this new feature, they don't have to climb in and out of the well for water every day, not to mention, watering down the crops will now be easier for everyone too. A fish gets caught by the reservoir and lands on Hiraku's land. Now that Hiraku has access to the river, he can now be able to eat fish, but he would need to find out how he'll prepare his new meal. In the forest, the rabbits can be very vicious, which is unlike them as they're low on the food chain, but the fish seem very normal. Or so he thought until one of the fish tries to attack Hiraku. Remember, never underestimate fish as they're underestimated in the real world, the Pokemon world, and this world is no exception. Anyway, Hiraku grills the aggressive fish, but Rue and Tia show concern that since the fish came from the Forest of Death, would it be safe to eat? When Hiraku offered the grilled fish to everyone, they all insist he should eat it as he was the one who cooked it. Hiraku tries a piece of fish, and he loves it. The taste reminds him of salmon, and he encourages Rue and Tia to try it too. The two do give it a shot, and they're amazed by how good it is. This also prompts the elves to want to eat some too. Luckily enough, there is enough fish to go around, so they had a feast. Hiraku goes back to work, and he wants to experiment with something. He decided to try tilling with the hoe while thinking about rice plants, and rice plants suddenly popped up. He finds it interesting that they could grow in normal soil, and now that they have the waterways built into their land, Hiraku wants to try and make a rice paddy. Rue, Tia, and the elves don't know what a rice paddy is, so he wants to show them what it is. Hiraku digs a hole and releases water onto it. This makes the elves think that Hiraku is making a pond for the fish, but instead, he's actually rice planting. As a team, Hiraku and the elves were able to plant all the rice seeds onto the water crop. And to keep pests out, Hiraku assigned Zabutan's children to serve as the crop's protector. When the rice plants grew, everyone jumped for joy as they were able to harvest them. After drying the rice crops, they finally managed to bring the plants inside so they could be threshed. After that, they put the rice through a sieve to filter them away from the remaining leaves or plant matter. They then mortared to remove the husk from the rice and pestle to polish the rice. In short, this process has many steps that everyone found exhausting. Just when everyone thinks the rice is ready to eat, Hiraku disappoints them by saying that he would have to cook them, as if they haven't spent enough time growing the rice and doing procedures to filter them. Hiraku asks Rue to start a fire to cook the rice, and she finally gets excited because she could show off her powerful abilities. But no, Hiraku just wants a tiny flame, which ruins the vibe for Rue. Hiraku finally sees the result of his cooking, and the rice has been cooked. Rue asks if the rice is finally done, and Hiraku says not yet. Like, come on? At this point, even the viewer is getting tired from this long monologue. Hiraku molds the rice into a small ball, and then gives it to Rue and Tia to try them. Tia feels hesitant, so she tells Rue to try it first. Rue reluctantly tries it and feels overjoyed at the taste of it. Tia tries it and she also agrees with how good the rice is, along with Ria. This made the endless waiting session worth it, and Hiraku is proud of his work. But it came back to bite him because when he wanted to try one, the rest of the rice paddies were taken by the other elves, addicted to how delicious they are. Sometime later, Hiraku and the elves were done working on the water crops, so as Hiraku dries himself off, he sees how the elves could easily cleanse themselves with magic. This prompts Hiraku to start his next project, building a bathhouse. The elves ask why not use the river to bathe themselves instead. Hiraku admits it is a good idea, but they will get hypothermia if it's the winter season. But it isn't about building a bathhouse for Hiraku to get clean faster. Hiraku wants to build one because he wants everyone to experience what a bathhouse feels like. Hiraku's ambitious vibe is enough for the elves to agree to help him. Construction began, and everyone focused on building a furnace, modifying the waterways to reach their way to the bathhouse, and building a bathtub to fit as many people as possible, along with making stools too. This will not be a private, but a communal bathhouse, so many people can enjoy it at the same time. The construction is almost complete, but Hiraku realizes a flaw in his plan. Although he can use the river water for the bathhouse, he is concerned that he will pollute the river if he sends his wastewater back. As a solution, Tia suggests he uses slimes to eat the waste products and purify the water so it's safe to give back to the river. Tia flies away to find some slimes and comes back with small harmless ones. Hiraku then builds a purification pool for the slimes in the waste waterway. Although Tia suggests also putting the slimes in the toilet, Hiraku agrees it'll be useful, but he feels uncomfortable doing his business in front of an audience. The furnace needs some firewood, so Hiraku goes to gather some, only to see that mushrooms have been growing on top of them. Although he is hesitant to try mushrooms because he isn't sure which are edible or not, he also remembers the girls eating them in the past, so he distracts himself by growing all the mushrooms he knows. The bathhouse is complete, and Hiraku explains to the girls how to use it, but they prefer a demonstration. They see Hiraku use the bathhouse, and seeing his relaxed expression was enough for them to try it out too. But Hiraku finds it awkward to bathe with people of the opposite gender, so he may consider building a bathhouse for men, but the elves dismiss that because it'll mean he gets a private bath to himself. The next day arrives, and another 5 elves come to the village seeking refuge. Hiraku invites the 5 elves to his growing community, and due to the elves' stability inside their new home, they make a goal to revive their race, including making children. How they plan to do that is up to the imagination. Now the focus has shifted from Hiraku's point of view to Kuro's instead. Before Kuro found Hiraku, he didn't have a name of his own. From his birth, Kuro spent his life inside the forest of death alone. He always found himself in fights and gained a reputation for having a flawless winning streak among male wolves. He lived the bachelor's life and enjoyed life as he pleased until he met a female wolf who he fought and then lost. After his loss, he joined the female wolf's travels and eventually grew intimate enough to start a family. To live a life leading a pack of his offspring was something Kuro didn't mind, but they one day were attacked by a grappler bear, the king of the forest. For an unknown reason, the bear spared their lives. It was a lucky break, but the wolves were too injured to continue hunting for food, thus they were eventually driven out by their former prey. When all hope seems lost, he finds a human male who took them in, and that is Hiraku. Kuro was hesitant at first because he thought Hiraku was weak, but Hiraku had a great aura of power within him, convincing Kuro to join him. Hiraku would feed and raise the wolves as if they were his family, and they are. This kindness gained Kuro's trust and loyalty toward his new master. Kuro was grateful to be let into a kind home where his children could grow up, and as Kuro's family grows, Hiraku's family starts to grow too as Ru, Tia, Ria, and the elves found their way into his family circle. Although Kuro respects Hiraku, he pities how Hiraku doesn't understand that he has been raising inferno wolves, a terrifying monster species, in his backyard. But that doesn't matter because Hiraku has proven himself to be a strong individual and a great leader. The story starts with the completion of their new house. Hiraku, Ru, Lia, and Hakurin are outside taking in the great structure they've worked so hard on. Hiraku had to dig an entire cellar out and use massive trees as supports, but with his almighty farming tool, everything was done in record-breaking time. While working, He had an inkling of what it'd be like, but still. Even now, he can't help but be impressed with what they've managed to build. Hakurin and Rue had all contributed during the design, making it the best they could. As Leah says, it just wouldn't feel right if he didn't have the nicest house here. They go to tour the interior. The main hall is incredibly spacious and has several large tables set out for eating or just hanging out. Magical lights are set at regular spaces over the ceiling, and sets of stairs on either side lead up to the upper floors. Everyone can gather here to chill and hang out. To the left is MC's room, the largest personal room in the entire building. They have a kitchen in the back and stoves outside, as well as a specified dining room. The cellar is used for storage, while the upstairs has the girls' rooms. Everyone has their own room, which makes the girls relieved, since everyone was getting crowded with all the people joining the farming community. They had so many people on the farm that Stalin would have been proud. MC heads to a nearby room and notices it has a lock from the outside only. Strange. When he opens it, he sees a single large bed inside. Oh. I'll just pretend I didn't see that. Their tour finished, and the group heads down, where MC looks outside and sees the great tree. He's happy with the way things turned out. After they spend the winter there, Leah offers to do renovations if anyone has any suggestions. MC goes and brings over a god statue as well as statues of his dogs. They would be placed at the entrance to the new house. A while later, MC is preparing dinner and seeing if he can do something new. Hakurin and Rue appear, asking him what he's making, and he tells them he's planning to make curry. The girls haven't heard of it, so he explains it to them. It's easy to make but takes a long time to master. Usually, he says, he just add Rue to the pot and cook it that way. This makes Rue very anxious, since she thinks he's talking about her. She calls him a savage. When the girls go outside to check out the fields, they notice a lot of new plants. MC has used his tool to grow plants not normally in season. They go and harvest spices they'll need for the curry. First is cumin, which the girls find quite cute. It's dried out now, but that's because once the flower has dried up, what's left behind is what gives it such a signature aroma. Rue takes a whiff. What a peculiar smell, she says. The next ingredient is turmeric, which is the main ingredient for giving curry its color. The plant itself is huge, but the harvested parts are the segments underground, which need to be dried out. The girls try to dry it out by doing funny chants around them, which not so surprisingly doesn't work. Magic, however, gets the job done. The next ingredient is coriander, which resembles small brown onions on a thin branchy stem. The seeds are ground up into powder, which has a nice and fresh fruit-like aroma. The leaves on top are called cilantro, which likewise has a very potent aroma that gets the dogs excited. They take a whiff before running away. MC shrugs and takes a bite for himself, remarking, "Looks like we have different tastes after all." Hakurin and Rue take note, since that plant was apparently capable of driving off infernal wolves. It might be worth researching. MC also picks up black pepper and cayenne peppers. These would be all the spices they needed. But as he's standing there, he remembers a saying. Girls think guys who make their own curry from scratch are a pain. He wonders if it's true. After gathering all the ingredients, he prepares to make dinner. Leah shows up to help him, with the others too busy making a certain magical amulet. The process of making curry has many steps. First, they heat up the rapeseed oil they've extracted. Then they add rabbit meat. While it's cooking, they grind up all the spices except for the cumin into a powder. Once they get some color on the meat, they take it off to prevent it from overcooking. Leah asks if it's enough powder for all the meat, and he tells her it should be. After this, they cook the cumin in the leftovers from the meat, to bring out its aroma and flavor. He states it's important to make sure not to burn it. As the smoke rises up, Leah exclaims she's never smelled anything like this before. The next step is to sauté the onions, ginger and garlic, again being careful not to burn them. After a little bit, they add the diced tomatoes and keep on sautéing it. While they're cooking, some other elves show up, wondering what the smell is. Leah offers to take over while he keeps directing her. Once the mix has turned into a nice paste, they move on to spices and salt. They cook it a little bit more before adding in the meat and boiled soybeans along with some water. While letting it simmer for a bit until the meat gets soft, they take the time to relax for a bit. Just then, MC realizes he's forgotten something. Naan. He considers how many portions he needs, which is a ton. You make naan by using the same recipe as regular bread, right up to where they let it rise. The difference is they now roll out the dough with a rolling pin. He hands it to Leah to take care of. Once done, they're supposed to cook it inside of the stove, but MC has seen people use the outside of a pot before, so he tries that. He places chunks all around the exterior while Leah looks on. Meanwhile, Rue is examining a piece of cilantro, remarking, "What an interesting plant this turned out to be. It's not poisonous apparently, but still has fascinating repellent effects against the wolves." They see several elves and dogs looking through some nearby bushes, and they go up to them. Everyone can smell something appetizing in the air. At last, MC and Leah are finished with their dish. The girls remark curry has a strange color and seem a bit hesitant, while MC shows them how to eat it with naan. You scoop it up and eat it kind of like a hot dog. Everyone likes it, and Rue considers researching it in the future. Soon, the girls are lining up for seconds, and MC fears he will have nothing left for himself. It's not the first time it's happened. Leah has even memorized the recipe by now, and she looks forward to making more in the future. The winter soon draws near and the group starts to make preparations. MC stocks up on logs and trades some food with the spider zabuton for more warm blankets. As he carries a few crates back to the house, he sees Lou and Tia preserving some food for the winter using magic. They season the meat, smoke it, and then get it dried. After all, the dogs can't hunt well either, so he wants to stock up on as much meat as possible. MC himself is working on a way to preserve vegetables. He fills crates with vegetables, places a sheet on top, and then covers it with snow. This is called snow storage. The bottom boxes are left empty to let the water fall through and keep the vegetables dry. MC wishes he could use magic, seeing all the girls having that ability. Later at night, Rue teaches MC the basics of magic. He seems to take a fancy to Hakuren's golems, which makes Rue a bit jealous. Hiraku admits he's feeling a bit bad, since all he does is gardening and cooking, while the girls do amazing things with their magic. But Rue reassures him, saying simply living out here is more than most people can do. After all, nobody else except for him has done this before. As the moons rise high in the sky, the scene soon fades to winter, with thick layers of snow building up on every surface. They shovel snow onto the vegetable containers. Afterward, they retreat indoors, where MC crafts a reversi set as well as a chess and mahjong set for them to pass the time with. He spends some time explaining the rules. First up is reversi. You play with black and white tiles. When you surround an opponent's piece on two sides with your own pieces, you flip it to your own color. The game ends when the board completely fills up, and whichever player has the most colored pieces then wins. Rue remarks it's a simple game and sounds kinda boring, but Hakuren assures her the simple design allows for complicated strategies. MC compliments her for understanding this principle, which causes Rue to immediately challenge Hakuren to a match. The girls are quite fired up. They had a history together and were only on a temporary truce while living with MC, so they're eager to settle the score. The angel easily claps the vampire, making her throw a rage fit and toss the board, pretending to slip. However, Hakuren just uses a spell. It causes all the pieces and the board itself to fall back into place, undoing the reset. Control Z is quite powerful, isn't it? Looks like resetting won't work against Hakuren. This same event keeps repeating over and over, so MC leaves the room to watch the elves play reversi with each other. One of them is playing for Kuro, who taps the board with his paw wherever he wants a piece turned. Several other wolves are playing chess, surprisingly doing quite well. MC finds it cute, but senses a terrifying energy coming from them. He reminds himself not to challenge one of them in the future. Rue shows up, asking if the wolves' game is done. Shin then struts up and challenges one of them to a game before MC can warn her. And sure enough, She soon loses a game to Kuro and ends up shivering in a corner. Their next game is Mahjong, which MC gets promptly destroyed in. In fact, he's the only one who ends with a massively negative score. Thus, Hiraka doesn't have any more points left. The game ends with an absolute sweep by Kuro. MC joins Rue in the corner. A while later, MC has also set up a mini bowling set, saying he's definitely not mad at Mahjong or anything. They've painted each of the pins and given them a unique name, such as serial killer or bandit. After MC's turn, the girls prove themselves much more capable, easily getting good and knocking over all the pins with a single try. Over the winter, they entertain themselves with plenty of games, with Rue losing repeatedly to Kuro until she passes out on a table. They even have good food too. Soon enough, the snow melts and spring has come. MC steps outside, admiring the cozy weather. The girls join him, asking what he wants to do. He says it's time to wake Zabuton from her hibernation and also get their corn planted. But Zabuton starts the alarm, sending the group out to see a terrible creature heading straight at them. It's a wyvern! It spreads its massive wings and roars a challenge. The story continues after the appearance of the wyvern. Its arrival heralded by Zabuton's frantic alarms, the draconic creature descends upon the settlement, and Hiraka rushes out to meet it with Rue and Hakurin. The girls seem to take it very seriously, and an anxious MC swallows while looking up. Before their eyes, the wyvern spreads its wings and sends a blast of wind in the party's direction, roaring a defiant challenge. MC wonders if he should try and drive it away, or if he should just have the others stay low and hope it ignores them. But of course, his questions are soon answered for him as the dragon unleashes a fiery breath, intent on roasting them all into little bits of reptile food. Rue and Hakurin hold up their hands, casting a defensive spell to protect the settlement. A bubble forms around the entire area, but the blast still manages to break through. Chunks of molten rock and burning wood fall all around them, causing fires which the elves rush to put out. The party wonders if they should attack it, but they seriously doubt whether they could even break through the wyvern's defenses. MC thinks about abandoning the place and having everyone escape into the forest, but that wouldn't work since it would be able to just follow them from the sky. He wishes for the strength to protect others, and his farming tool transforms into a shiny golden spear. I guess spears can be used for farming, if you count farming monsters, of course. But MC doesn't dwell too long on this topic and instead wins himself back to chuck the spear at the wyvern. Fairy tale music plays in the background, so you know it's protagonist and friendship time. Hiraka's spear soars in a deadly arc directly at the monster, and it puts up several magical barriers in front of it. But this is an overpowered main character anime, so his attack breaks through and pierces its wing. The almighty farming tool then returns to MC's hand, and he throws it again. This time he nails the beast in its chest. He and the girls watch the wyvern fall out of the sky, stunned at what just happened. Nobody expected him to have so much power. MC heads out with his wolves to find its body, and they soon see it. They wonder if it's possible the creature was under someone else's control, but Hakurin tells him it's unlikely for someone to be able to both harness such a powerful creature, as well as consider it expendable enough to throw at them. Reassured, MC asks the next most logical question. Can you eat it? The answer somehow is yes. Apparently, there was once a king who sent his army into a den of wyverns to hunt them, and bring them back so he could have a taste. Of course, they all got burned to death and eaten by the creatures. But MC is too powerful, so he was able to easily defeat it and make it into several juicy meals. There's a round steak grilled with spices, breast meat steamed in leaves, and tail meat simmered in a stew with vegetables. The meat turns out so much more tender than they thought, even though a knife can't even pierce its skin. The broth is great too. The girls gather around, all enjoying their food. While eating, Rue asks if Hakurin would be able to block an attack from MC's spear. Not a chance, she says. The attack pierced a 3-layer barrier from a wyvern before blowing right through its chest. The girls think it was lucky they ran into Kuro and the rest of his pack when they first got here, rather than MC. Hiraka asks them what's wrong, and they just tell him they're glad to be in good health, and fate must have been smiling upon them. Speaking of smiles, or rather the lack of smiles, the scene shifts to the demonic kingdom of Galgardo and the demon lord's castle. News of the wyvern's defeat has reached them. 3 figures are sitting at a table, simply unable to comprehend what has just happened. Defeating just a single wyvern requires the mobilization of their entire military force. But this one was slain from the ground and killed in just 2 hits. The figures are 3 of the demon lord's 4 great generals, Bezel, Randon and Gratz. There's no way they could fight something like that. And they just got their yearly budget approved too. Randon throws his hands up, saying he would have to deal with their people panicking if the news spread, so he'd rather just resign now and let somebody else deal with it. The others shout at him to come back. The scene then shifts to the gatekeeper dragons and Drime's lair, where a giant blue dragon is speaking to Gucci, one of his attendants who, as the name suggests, is absolutely decked out. They both saw the incident unfold with their own eyes, and the dragon asks what he thinks would happen if he were to receive such an attack himself. It would most likely pierce cleanly through him. They decide it is too dangerous to attack or interfere in their business. With the world building done, the attention shifts back to MC. The wyvern meat was delicious, but there was still one thing missing from that meal: alcohol. This gets the elves excited, and everyone is excited to finally be able to get started. They do a quick harvest and build a large tub for them to crush the grapes, using their own bodies and large stirring sticks. Some of the elves are hesitant to step on something they'll have to drink, but I'm sure some of those grapes would love to be stepped on by. Well, let's move on. MC tells them they can switch out if they get tired, while he would be in charge of switching out the barrels. Lalasha had built them to be watertight to better hold the crushed grapes. The girls then get into the tub and start walking around clockwise, but Hakurin ends up getting her foot stuck and collides with one of the elves, knocking them both down into a fan service position. When she gets up, she remarks it would be easier to stay coordinated if they had a song. The elves exclaim they've got something. It's a song they used to sing from back in their village days, and with one of them in lead, the rest break into song and a rhythm soon break out. The juices start flowing and even Rue and MC get pushed in to join. Thus time passes. After an entire day's worth of work, they've got several barrels full of crushed grapes. The yeast on the skin of the grapes should ferment it for them, but perhaps they've made too much? In total, they got 16 barrels. From above, God and his daughter, the goddess of agriculture, are observing him, with God lamenting about how he messed up so much while trying to help MC. He tried to give him a good life, but accidentally sent him into the forest of death. And not only that, he also gave MC a replica of the Holy Lance Grime. Although Hiraku is only using it as a farming tool right now, it's extremely dangerous since it could drain all of his life force and kill him instantly. God says it's fine since MC was given extremely powerful regeneration abilities. Infinitely suffering and healing? But that just sounds like torture. I mean, enhanced interrogation techniques. War crimes aside, the agriculture goddess then gets to the main problem. Why is the statue MC made of her an old man? God fidgets nervously while his daughter scolds him, telling him to sit there for another 300 years to repent for his mistakes. Down below, while Zabuton makes another piece of cloth, she notices something and signals for the group to be on alert. MC takes out his spear and goes to investigate, only to find a little pointy-eared girl bound in spiderwebs. It gives MC a sense of déjà vu and it turns out to be Flora, Rue's younger sister. Apparently, Flora was looking for Rue after she heard her sister was being chased by a certain evil angel. Hakurin makes a scary face and Flora is shocked to see her here. She quickly tries to cover up her mistake and get her sister to help, but Rue is not forthcoming. MC offers for Flora to stay with them for a bit. After all, she just got there. Flora instead replies she can't believe MC is actually Rue's husband. Something feels off. But once Kuro gives her a funny look and Rue tells her about MC's accomplishments, she makes a cute noise and quickly apologizes. It's at this point that MC gets a display of the Inferno Wolf's abilities, having never realized this prior. That night, they give Flora a nice bowl of miso soup and give her a food lecture. Learning about microorganisms involved in fermentation gets her worked up and she leaves the next day, inspired. 1 month later, Flora returns with an entourage of maids as well as some normal cows. With milk, they would now have access to milk and cheese. And they would have cows too. Moving on. While watching the new arrivals, Hakurin realizes there's a lot of everyone, except for angels. She's alone. She tells MC she needs to leave for some time and returns later that night with her subordinates. The angels Gran Maria, Cudel and Caron. Daga the lizardman representative. And a chicken. Behold. A chicken. Description. It's just a normal chicken. Thanks to everyone here, things get a lot more civilized. The maids belong to a race of ogres and are quite professional, helping them get their chores done faster. It doesn't seem the maids know more sophisticated dishes, so MC teaches them, which gets them extremely interested in cooking. Despite their appearances and courteous behavior, they are also extremely strong and can carry a lot of things at once. The angels also contribute quite a bit, patrolling different regions of the forest from the air like fantasy attack helicopters. It turns out, after the wyvern attack, Hakurin thought it would be helpful to have some security around the area. Good idea! As for the lizardmen, they help out by doing a lot of physical labor and helping out with construction. But since they looked really similar, MC had their leader Daga tie a red scarf around his arm. The most pressing issue, however, is there would now be a ton of people here. Just as he finishes calculating the population, just like my math professor, Rhea shows up with more problems for him to do. The rest of the elves from their village have appeared, so MC goes to see them. Surprisingly, he catches on to the fact there aren't any male elves, and he asks Rhea about this. She replies there weren't many male elves that survived the attacks, having a quiet moment of mourning before declaring, "It's alright, since they'll just make more now." Not understanding, MC gives them a thumbs up and wishes them good luck. As they crowd around him, he decides not to ask them exactly what they mean. Back at the main hall, the representatives of all the races meet with MC to talk about a name for their farming settlement. At first, it was just his hut, but as more people showed up and settled around the area, it became an actual village. They consider a few ideas. Rue suggests naming it after MC. But like any normal non-narcissist, he thinks it would be weird to have a town named after him, and suggests they name it after the forest they're in, and MC asks her what the forest is called, only to be told it was called the Forest of Death. Naturally, this was a no-go since their village would be something like the Village of Death. As one might expect, it's not exactly an attractive name. As they start running out of ideas, Zabuton points toward the door and MC opens it. As he looks out, inspired by the towering great tree in the village center, he decides to call the place the Great Tree Village. They celebrate this occasion that night, with the crowd's cheers quickly turning into chants of mayor. Thus, in a suspiciously undisputed democratic election, MC becomes their leader. Late that night, MC confides in a drunken Hakurin, saying he thinks it's a dream since he's so happy, but she tells him it isn't. They're going to keep living together, enjoying their lives. After a night of partying, our MC gets up and continues with his daily routine. A warning sound from Zabuton alerts him. He is informed that a messenger from the demonic kingdom has arrived. Beazle introduces himself and asks to speak to whoever is in charge. MC realizes that this falls within the scope of his duties as mayor. He introduces himself as the mayor and Beazle eye him carefully. He then produces a gift, but this sudden motion alerts the other angels. Bazile calmly produces a gift that Rue sees and excitedly takes from MC. Beazle delivers a message from the demon lord inquiring about their presence in the forest. MC recalls Rue mentioning something about the forest where they reside as being part of the demon lord's domain. This gets MC thinking about what might the purpose of the demon lord be. Is he asking for taxes? Or are they going to be evicted? So typical, becoming a mayor has made MC a politician, and now has to speak his mind without fearing the loss of votes. MC thinks of asking Rue and Lia, but Rue just winks at him. He thinks this is a sign of confidence of him as a mayor, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. If the demon lord accepts us living in this land, we will give him part of our harvest. This surprises Beazle. MC feels it is right to show that he has no intention of rebelling against the Demon Lord. As for the rate, MC promises 10%. Beazle's eyes widen, and this makes MC think he had given him such a low offer. Beazle asks if these are the terms he is okay with. MC hesitantly says yes and asks them to pick up the harvest every year before the winter. Beazle agrees to the term and promises to proceed according to MC's instructions. MC is surprised at how fast the negotiations were settled. They go inside the house and draw up a contract, well, in this case a treaty. MC clarifies that the tax would only cover their harvest and not anything they produce through livestock like their milk, eggs, honey, and alcohol. If the Demon Lord wanted their other products, they would have to enter into another trade agreement. Wow, just a few months on the job and our mayor is revealing top-notch diplomatic skills. Never thought those were included in the farming skills. As Beazle leaves, MC thinks he has been too aggressive with the negotiations. Alone with his girls, MC asks how he did as mayor. Rue congratulates him for negotiating to have their village under the Demon Lord's protection. Tia also chimes in as he was able to give 10% when the going rate was 50% to 60%. Wow, even in their world the government sucks you dry with taxes. I mean 50%. How can you guys live with only 50% of your salary going to bureaucrats and politicians? Anyway, and commends how MC successfully made the Demon Lord acknowledge their village by requiring them to visit every year. Rhea also sees their once-a-year visit will not give them the ability to accurately measure their crop yields, so they cannot collect the right taxes. Typical taxpayer mentality, finding ways to lower paying taxes. I knew there was a lesson here somewhere. In summary, MC's first foray as a politician yielded to them the protection of the Demon Lord, lower taxes, and an elixir that can cure anything if you drink or rub it in the injured part. Back in the kingdom of the Demon Lord, Beazle reports on his mission. Gratz is suspicious that MC had agreed to be subjected under them as they were able to take down a wyvern in 2 hits. Randon thinks MC may have some ulterior motives for this. Beazle also had his suspicions but could not do anything but agree to the terms. He says the vampire princess and the angel of annihilation were there as well. Gratz is surprised that the great sage and mightiest of all the angels were all with MC. Randon starts shaking in his boots while Beazle continues with his report. He also saw a group of high elves and a pack of inferno wolves. He was presented to MC by a trio of killer angels. He was pissing in his pants, thinking he would not see the light of day. Gratz realizes how powerful they all were. Beazle had dared not refuse any of MC's demands as they could not afford to have the village as their enemy. He still feels it was a successful negotiation as all things ended amicably. Typical of a politician finding ways to sugarcoat everything. He shows them the gift MC had given to them. They decide to open it and inspect it. It turned out to be apples and Gratz takes one to check for poison. Beazle tells him to stop as he cannot just eat the apples without telling the Demon Lord. He then realizes that the cloth the gift came with was made from a great demon spider. Gratz can't believe that the village would house something that had fought the former Demon Lord to a standstill. Randon stands and says he is resigning, again. I wish that were true of all politicians. The next day, the leader of the dragons, Drime, comes to visit and brings a gift of a fancy-looking sword with a scabbard. MC feels the gift may be a little extravagant and violent but accepts it, nonetheless. Drime's servant explains that since they are technically neighbors, they decided to greet them and introduce themselves. Witnessing a wyvern's death in 2 hits does that to kingdoms. MC invites them into their house, so Drime transforms into a smaller form. He reintroduces himself, and MC observes Drime seems to have memorized his lines. After a few rounds of drinks, Drime gets drunk and wants to start living there. His servant reminds him of his kingly duties, but he does not seem to care. Drime reluctantly leaves, bringing home some of the apples MC had given them. Having guests 2 days in a row makes MC start to think of a better place to welcome them. The next day, MC shares his plan to build a small guest house for visitors. At first, he thinks they should just build a small house that can accommodate 4 people. But the elves point out people coming, to their village come far off and have to travel through mountains and the forest. Their first 2 visits were from nobility, but they will also need to take into consideration people traveling in large groups. They settle on building a house that could fit 30. They all got to work. MC decides to spruce up their diplomatic entourage. Gran Maria and the other angels would be in charge of defending their perimeter. Their way of bringing uninvited guests may not bring the best experience. The warning that Zabuton makes everyone grab a weapon and attack visitors is not exactly a welcoming sight. MC makes Zabuton use a bell made by the elves to signal the arrival of visitors. He tries to form a small receiving party for guests, but his idea was rejected as enemies might disguise themselves as visitors. So, the welcoming party grew to include lizard men and high elves. I mean, nothing spells welcome more than a bunch of mythical creatures and warriors, right? Flora became in charge of keeping tabs on their guests who stay overnight. This is where MC learns Flora and Rue could go for days without sleeping. After they made these changes, Garf and some beastmen came to the village to establish trade. Graf explains they come from a village in the East Mountains called the Howling Village. Rue steps up and greets them. She asks if the entire group were present so they could rest in their newly built guest house. When Garf says they are complete, Rue changes her demeanor and declares they will just treat the other beastmen as enemies. 2 beastmen give a shout as the infernal wolves push them out of hiding. Garf guilty apologizes and explains that the stragglers were part of his group. Rue gently explains they should always make sure everyone was together before entering the village, and they should behave while they are there. Wow, this is like a veiled threat from a seasoned politician. They bring the beastmen to the guest house and are greeted by Anne and the maids. The beastmen of course excitedly ogle the maids in their outfits and their bulging melons. Boys will be boys, I guess. But then, things take a strange turn when Rue and Tia lock the door outside. MC objects to their actions. It turns out local custom dictates that visitors bring a gift when they go to the village first time, like the messenger and the dragon. Doubtful, MC inquires if they are not friendly enough. Tia responds that since they did not follow the usual customs, they would not be treated as visitors. So, there you have it. To make good impressions and get the normal visitor treatment, make sure to bring some gifts whenever you go meet new people. Otherwise, you may get locked in. Rue and Tia also post guards outside the door for extra measure. MC asks why the angel trio did not capture the 2 supposed stragglers. Apparently, they were not perceived as a threat, but Pia promises to punish them for this. MC asks her to go easy on them and she agrees to let them off with a warning. I thought this story was about to turn into some form of dictatorship. Fortunately, MC has a cool enough head to keep things more or less democratic. The next day, and prepares their guests' meal, which to MC was not at par with the food they served Rhyme. She admits they are below standard as they had brought nothing. Again, please be reminded to bring gifts when you meet someone for the first time. During the meal, MC was a bit ashamed for giving the beastmen a meager meal. Tia and Rue remind him they are trying to find out the reasons they are there. It was MC who had insisted on serving them wine, actually their word was forced. MC had made the maid serve a maximum of 2 cups of wine per person as he wanted to show kindness despite not knowing what they wanted with the village. Well, our MC has a plan in place at least. He approaches Garf and asks what kind of place Howling Village is. He explains it was 500 years old, but stories say it was 1,000 years. But you know how stories eventually become tall tales. Most of their population are beastmen and they are a collection of about 100 settlements. The wine had worked and loosened the tongues of the beastmen. Howling Village was mainly a hunting and mining town. They survived through establishing trade relations with a human village across the mountains. But due to some trouble with that village, trade became unstable and unreliable. They had heard of the village from one of the demon lord's people and decided to try establishing trade with them. Tia uses her charm to ask why there were 2 stragglers that did not enter the village with them. A beastman, clearly drunk, admits they had to take precautions as it was their first time dealing with them. The 2 were assigned to go back and inform their village in case something happened to the main group. The next day, they start their trade negotiations. Without currency, they decide to use the age-old barter system. But MC gets the idea to use some form of currency in the future. They invite MC to go to their village to trade directly there as they had difficulty getting to the Great Tree Village. MC points out that they too will have the same problem but thinks he can convince Kuro and the dogs to pull their good through the forest. Beastmen offer them products made from the ore they mined and MC gladly takes all they had to offer. In return, MC promises to bring them foodstuff. As Garf leaves, he apologizes for not knowing the local custom of bringing gifts but promises to bring a gift from their humble village. MC gladly accepts their promise but reminds them it's not the value of the gift but the thought that counts. I wonder if that really works in today's society. After Garf leaves, they make arrangements to bring their foodstuff. Drime happily volunteers to carry them on his back in exchange for a barrel of wine. Drime had been a constant visitor bringing expensive gifts and getting drunk every time he visits. But he receives no complaints, as everybody seems to love his gifts. Drime brings everyone to Howling Village who were surprised by the arrival of a dragon. After a few days, they return and brought the good news of their success. Drime, however, was sulking in the corner, as Tia had traded even the wine that was meant for him. MC promises he can just double what he normally drinks at dinner. This cheers him up. Tia reports that the mayor wanted 20 women wanted to live in their village as well. MC feels the imbalance of gender in their village and insists they have at least 2 young men with them. The Howling Village sends the new settlers and they bring all the girls with 3 young boys. Something clearly must have been lost in the transmission of his message. MC panics as he realizes that the boys will need about 5 to 10 years more before they can help repopulate the village, thus leaving him with a harem-like life still. The story picks up after the beast folk from Howling Village moved in. Apparently, they all thought they were going to be treated horribly when they arrived, but Hiraka had no such intentions. Instead, their new members were able to enjoy all the luxuries of their settlement, including the heated baths. And remarks, even though there are no problems with these new arrivals, there's still a problem. They faint quite often. MC says they will just have to get used to these things over time. As they watch the beast folk children play, one of them trips but Senna casts feather fall on him, causing him to gently float to the ground. MC asks if she can use magic too, and when she tells him she can, he begins to feel a bit awkward. He turns to Hakurin, who can also use magic, and seems to grow a bit embarrassed when she informs him almost everyone here can use magic. In fact, all of the angels she knows can, and all of the high elves use magic to help with their construction. It's common too for the Oni to be able to use fire and water magic, and even the lizard folk can do the same. And when Hiraku turns to the last hopes he has, he finds out the wolves have shadow magic, and Zabuton and the queen bee both have fire magic. As he slowly claps, depressed, saying even the bees have magic, as if to rub it in, one of the waste processing slimes slides over and blows out a torrent of fire from between its derpy eyes. But all is not lost. Senna urges him to cheer up, reassuring him not everyone can use magic after all. For example, the children she brought from the Howling Village. But as they tug at him, asking him to practice with them, he says he has a feeling even they will surpass him soon. Hiraka resolves to just focus on what he can do. Farming. Unfortunately, trouble has its way of finding him, and there's a massive tremor as the ground starts to shake. MC looks around as he wonders if there was an earthquake, or something. Answers arrive in the form of one of the angels, Gran Maria, who flies over with a report. A grappler bear and a bloody viper are fighting in the northern area of the forest. He's surprised only 2 creatures can cause such a disturbance, and the angel asks nervously, "What should we do?" It would be dangerous to get involved without a plan, but the village might be in danger if we do nothing. MC thinks for a moment before asking her about more details so he can make an evacuation plan for the village. Just kidding. This is an overpowered MC anime, so he instead asks her how these creatures would taste. The angel flies Hiraku over and they spot the 2 giant monsters fighting. Maria says they should go back for help, but as the monsters look up at them, MC tells her to drop him off really quickly. And sure enough, 1 punch later, both creatures are as dead as my dreams of being an astronaut dinosaur keeper. Kuro and the angels watch, stunned by MC's power, as the lizard folk arrive. They drag the beasts back to the village, while MC remarks it's his biggest catch yet. MC cuts the bear into bits and prepares a sort of stew, adding various spices, herbs and wine to make wine-braised grappler bear, a delicious yet incredibly gamey dish. Hiraku tries frying the bloody viper, treating it essentially as if it were chicken meat. This one turns out much better, almost like fried chicken or a chicken breast. But MC realizes something's missing. Sauce? He resolves to go see Flora at her lab. He asks if she has something antibacterial that can kill microorganisms, something that can prevent stomach illnesses or stomachaches. She hands him a red vial, saying 1 dose is enough to blast something to the other side of the mountains. That sounds like the opposite of stomach medicine to me. Isn't that just diarrhea? This isn't what he wants, so MC clarifies by asking if she has anything more peaceful, so she gives him a blue vial which is usable with food. Hiraku then checks on the progress for making miso, but she tells him it's not going very well. She did what she told him, but it never seemed to ferment, so she added some chemicals to it that ended up causing her hut to explode. And 3 times, no less. MC urges her to try again and provides her with some helpful advice. Next time, try not to use any explosives. The next day, they begin work on some sort of sauce to go with the fried viper. First, they beat 3 eggs in a bowl before adding salt and apple vinegar. They mix it slowly while pouring in oil, which gives them mayonnaise. Next, they give the miso another try. First, they start by simmering the soybeans they previously soaked in water. Second, they grind them and Hiraku gets them to mold using his almighty farming tool. And third, they mix the koji with salt and form them into balls which they pack into barrels and place in the cellar to age for several months. It'll take a long time, but this will make the flavors much better. Rue drops by and tells them they have visitors, so they go to their meeting hall. These newcomers are a group of elder dwarves led by a man named Donovan. Like your typical dwarves, they have come here after hearing rumors of high-quality wine from MC's village. Although Hiraku is happy to share some of their wine for free, the girls are much less inclined and state their wine comes at a cost. Amused but not discouraged, the dwarves explain they are poor but can offer technology, since they've gained quite some experience after having spent their lives studying the production of alcohol. This tempts the girls, and the dwarves proceed with the demonstration, using their knowledge of distillation to make corn whiskey. MC tries some and his face immediately turns beet red. He's surprised by how strong it is. Donovan calls him a lightweight, but with this settled, the dwarves soon become the town's brewers. That night, the group throws a welcome party for the beast folk and dwarves. They indulge in more alcohol than you'll find at a college rave. On second thought, maybe not. MC realizes something important though while watching everyone enjoy themselves. There's finally more adult men in the village. He shares a drink with Donovan and asks the dwarf if there are any girls in the room he thinks are pretty. But of course, this is a harem isekai, so the dwarf says none of the girls are to his liking since he likes girls who have nice beards. Respect. It's apparent there's a cultural difference in their beauty standards. The next day, a dragon flies straight for the village, causing MC to immediately spring to his feet and activate his farming tools weapon mode. But before he can attack, the dragon gets tackled by Doraemon. As they're fighting, another dragon appears and MC chucks his spear at it, sensing the situation has gotten quite a bit out of hand. His spear misses, but before he can attack again, Gucci springs out and grabs him, saying there's a misunderstanding. The 3 dragons later assume their human forms and introduce themselves. They are Doraemon's wife Graf Phelan and daughter Lastisman. MC asks why they're here and the king of dragons sheepishly explains. You see, Doraemon snuck out at night so much his daughter thought he was cheating on his wife, especially since he'd take stuff from their hoard, and be gone at night and back in the morning. But that was because MC got worried a drunk Doraemon wouldn't be in any shape to go home, so he built him a house at their village where the Dragon King often stayed to sleep it off. Doraemon tries to justify his nightly excursions as sophisticated socioeconomic politics, but his family still doesn't believe him until he argues he wouldn't have the courage to cheat on his wife anyways, which they accept. The king of dragons, everyone! Please clap. MC interjects, apologizing for attacking them earlier, but the dragons apologize instead. Graf Phelan offers a rather passive-aggressive comment. She asks him to forgive her for attacking the man who was about to attack her daughter, but the situation resolves itself rather quickly. As Hiraku leaves, the dragons discuss their relations with MC's village. Despite acting strong, Graf Phelan admits she was only able to survive MC's spear because of her friend Zabutan, who pulled her out of the way with a web at the last moment. The dragons have finally found people who are more than a match for them. They assign Latticeman to stay with MC's village to build relations with them. They want to make sure Hiraku never ends up becoming enemies with them. Thus, MC's harem gains another member. Lasti's physical strength, however, turned out to be quite a problem. Even in her human form, she still has trouble interacting with fragile objects. Instead of picking tomatoes, she crushes them. Instead of washing plates, she shatters them. Instead of sneezing, she creates Megaman tear explosions that make the nearby lizardmen glare at her. As MC and Hakurin watch Lasti play with the kids, they discuss how the dragon's presence has made their animals so terrified that the cows and chickens have stopped producing milk and eggs. He didn't think of this earlier since Doraemon was basically a drunken joke, but the other dragon's presence really left its mark. Hakurin tells him dragons have not only great power but also great intellect, so MC decides to leave Lasti in charge of dealing with diplomacy and handling outside visitors. When the demon general comes to visit later, he's shocked and terrified to find one of the great dragons waiting. Needless to say, with her innocent remarks and immense power, she quote-unquote convinces the general to accept various gifts. He's way too scared to reject anything she says, and when the general returns back to the demon castle, he discusses the situation with the others. Realizing how hopeless the situation may be, they resolve to send a spy to the Great Tree Village. Thus, the next day, the General Bizzle meets with his daughter Florum and sends her to investigate the village, advising her to be careful and not do anything rash. She teleports over and meets with the dragoness Lasti. First impressions can be quite powerful, and she's unable to believe she's already encountered someone so powerful despite barely setting foot inside the village. Indeed, Florum doesn't understand why one of the great dragons is guiding her around a perfectly normal vineyard, bragging about the village's produce. What's going on? An angel arrives with word of a delegation from the Howling Village, so Lasti apologizes before leaving Florum to her own business. She takes the opportunity to analyze the Great Tree Village's military strength. Lizardmen, beast folk, Oni, and dwarves. Rue the Vampire Princess, Hakurin the Angel of Annihilation, Killer Angels, and the High Elves. Then she sees the Inferno Wolves and Demon Spiders marching together on a patrol. Having observed such a powerful assortment of creatures all working and living together, she assumes Lasti is the one in charge, but she can't get something out of her head. She's been hearing rumors of someone called the Mayor above them all. What kind of terrifying opponent is she dealing with? As she's sitting there in the woods outside the village, reviewing the details she's gathered, she hears someone approach. It's Hiraku. Florum is arrogantly surprised to see a normal human amidst all these powerful creatures, and one who is asking about her well-being no less. When she returns to the village, she's even more shocked to learn from Lasti that the human she just saw was in fact the legendary mayor of the village. When she hears he's able to take down Lasti's mother in a single attack, Florum nearly freaks out. She not only didn't say hello to him, but she also straight up ignored him. Needless to say, she ends up joining MC's village to try and make up for that slight. On a random day, a slime that Tia brought to the village to purify their wastewater and sewage has suddenly started to multiply, creating many different types of slimes, of many different colors. They were all harmless, so MC didn't really notice that they'd been multiplying. That is, until one day when a red slime ended up breaking into one of their barrels of wine, drinking it all and toppling out of it, completely wasted. Since the alcohol is everyone's property, the girls are angry that their fellow comrade drank the wine without their permission. Thus, everyone gets seriously fired up, and Senna tries her best to calm them while MC examines the slime himself. It's a small red jelly creature that fits snugly in his arms, doing its best to make itself cute. This incident came as a big shock to all the alcohol-loving villagers there, so they held a totally fair and unbiased trial to determine its fate. When the vote begins, everyone decides that it's guilty and people begin to come up with barbaric punishments, such as blowing it up or drying it out in the sun. MC takes a leaf out of the real-life criminal punishment system, deciding the best way to teach it a lesson is by subjecting it to solitary confinement, because that's obviously worked well in real life and there are totally no problems with that. But the girls are unsatisfied, raging for more until Forum reminds them it's just a slime, so punishment isn't exactly going to get it to change its mind. Everyone calms down a little, realizing how worked up they got over nothing. The village eventually reconciles with the slime, letting it join them during their feasts. It's fine to have one like that, MC thinks, but it would be a problem if there were more. That autumn, MC wonders how the summers in this new world aren't as hot as the ones he knew, but it would still be nice when things cool down so they can get more work done. As a result, he's feeling hungrier than usual. Rue, Lasti, Senna, and the other girls are eating a soup made from the various mushrooms they've grown. They're enjoying a hot pot together, and seeing all this makes MC wish for seafood. Stuff like crab, cod or monkfish, and even kombu to make some delicious soup. Or perhaps miso to make chanko hot pot. Hearing this gets the girls excited for new delicacies and Rue asks Flora to start researching immediately. Senna gets a bit flustered since she's never been to the ocean before, while Tia wonders if it's even possible to eat crabs since, from her own experience, the crabs she's encountered were massive, heavily armored creatures. Ria thinks about the word kombu, and how it sounds quite terrifying, like a tsunami. Meanwhile, and asks if miso is the soupy thing MC showed her how to make earlier, and Lasti questions whether chanko is a type of fish. Since they need access to the ocean to get seafood, Forum suggests they go to a certain port city. Located in the demonic kingdom just south of their village, they might be able to find fish there, so Lasti volunteers to fly them over, where Forum would be able to find a merchant to talk to. It appears everyone really likes hot pots and has gotten quite motivated to work. Seeing all this unfold, MC can't help but feel quite happy since, as a farmer, nothing makes him happier than seeing others enjoying his food. 3 days later, the Goround Company president Michael Goround appears, having traveled here from the city of Shishato in the south. He's an elderly middle-aged gentleman, who introduces himself to Mayor Hiraku in one of their village's cabins. He's brought several fishes from their town as samples, but informs MC he doesn't have any seaweed since the fishermen usually toss it back into the ocean. However, he'll have it dried and ready in the future. The group settle in for negotiations. Showing a surprising level of directness, Goround informs the party he has 3 main goals. The first is for them to get properly acquainted, the second is to suggest more possible business opportunities, while the third is to become the exclusive purveyor for the Great Tree Village. In other words, he wants to be their only middleman for trading with the outside world. Goround says the crops they have are quite enticing, and that he would be able to get them several times their normal value via trading. Rue mentions there are tons of other merchants who would be delighted to be able to trade with them, and he counters by saying his company is already well established in the trade of many goods. The group works out their arrangement off-screen, since apparently nobody except me is interested in the complicated socio-economic situations found in a relaxing harem isekai. When Goround prepares to leave for the day, he mentions the alcohol production of their town, which gets him lampooned by the various parties present. After all, wine is their second god, right after MC himself. As the merchant is flown off by Lasti, when they get far enough from the village, his calm and professional demeanor breaks down as he freaks out. We now flash back to 3 days earlier at Shishato City. At their headquarters, one of Goround's aides comes to him with reports of someone requesting a meeting with him. He's surprised since the rules normally dictate that people are to schedule an appointment first, but after his aide informs him about the visitors having brought a lot of merchandise with him, his business senses start to tingle. He decides to meet with them. That's when he encounters Forum, Lasti, and one of the lizardmen. The merchant remembers meeting Forum at one of her previous birthday parties, and is relieved to not have sent her away since her family is powerful enough such a mistake would have been fatal. Frorum then introduces Lasti, much to his horror. She's known as a crazy dragon, the daughter of one of the most powerful families in the Dragon Kingdom. He realizes the risks of trading with them might not be worth the risk, yet not wanting to get on their bad side, feigns interest in what they have to say. He goes to see what they want, and they show him some of the merchandise they brought. As the lizardmen stare him down, he inspects the goods and is pleasantly surprised to realize they're apples. Specifically, the extremely popular and expensive ones trickling in through the forest of death. The rewards start racking up in his mind, and he reasons it might be worth the risks working with them after all. He asks if the goods they were seeking were from the ocean, which is correct. Since he controls the port, he begins to try and get on their good side to ensure this opportunity doesn't slip past. Go-Around gets one of his aides to prepare a batch of sample products, and declares he'll go with them on their first shipment. He's soon horrified to learn he'll be going to the forest of death with them, and riding on the crazy dragon Lasti no less. That's how he ended up on Lasti's back, visiting the various denizens orbiting around MC. To his credit, he somehow manages not to pass out from encountering all these powerful individuals, and managed to do so with a smile on his face. But as they fly back to Shishato, he says his old man's body can't take it anymore. But that's how the Great Tree Village got their hands on real seafood, and established economic connections with the outside world. The next day, Zabuton rings the alarm, signaling the third time a dragon has attacked their village, the angels not having been able to stop it. It hovers before MC, seeming to taunt him as it sets fire to parts of the forest. MC throws his spear at it, and knocks it out of the sky. As usual, the creature takes on a waifu form, and it's only until Drime shows up that MC stays his hand. The girl is Hakurin, Drime's older sister. She's here because Drime claimed he was going to marry Lasti off to MC, which turns out to be because he was drunk. She claims she visited him in the form of a dragon to test his strength, but when Drime presses her, she admits she wanted to vent her frustration after her niece Lasti, who was 900 years younger than her, was going to get married before her. This annoys Hiraku, and he grabs her by the forehead, telling her not to cause trouble for other people just for such a selfish reason. He has her clean up the messes she made, before she ends up joining them for dinner. Hakurin is excited to play mahjong and challenges MC to a game. He doesn't even get to explain the rules to her when she demands they bet. MC tries to turn this down, but the rest of the dragons Drime and Lasti are on board. He gets a feeling things are about to get really bad. Sure enough, the dragons are extremely serious about this, insisting they play strip mahjong. Even though Hakurin doesn't know the rules, MC gets clapped so badly he ends up on his last bits of clothing, with the girls chanting for him to take his pants off. For the first time, they get to see his other carrot. The night erupts with their happy cheers. Back at the Demon Lord's castle, Bizzle and the other commanders receive word of the dragons gathering at the Great Tree Village. They now have enough power to conquer an entire nation just by themselves, a worrying prospect indeed for the demons. Demon Lord Galgardo interrupts their conversation, and the ominous music begins to play as he unveils his plan to destroy the Great Tree Village. Just kidding, what anime do you think you're watching? Instead, he mentions how his daughter has been in a bad mood all day long, and asks them if they know whether it's just a phase or not. Ah yes, moody teenagers. Meanwhile, Hakurin has ended up as the village's teacher. Despite having a lot of knowledge and power, she was incredibly lazy. Whenever MC turned around, she was either complaining or doing nothing. She hopes for a day when she wouldn't have to do anything, and could just laze around. However, Hiraku sends her off to dig up and fill holes until she eventually gives up, which is why she now teaches reading, writing, and math. She tells the kids she wants them to study hard so, when they grow up, they can do everything for her. Not exactly the ideal motivation. With this sorted out, you'd think things couldn't get even more crazy. But MC doesn't get a chance to breathe, as more visitors show up the next day. A trio of Lamia, who visit MC with offerings of various treasures, seeking protection from the terrible monsters in the forest. As it turns out, Apparently the infernal wolves were roaming the forest and found a dungeon to clear, driving out the inhabitants inside. Although they were proud of this, it goes without saying that those inhabitants were the Lamia in question. Having heard them out, MC decides to take them in, since it would be improper to send them off without help. They decide to trade some of the crystals the Lamia brought for a bunch of their food. But the Great Tree Village's produce apparently has high levels of aphrodisiac in them, since the Lamia are more than pleased with the trade. In fact, they say they'll do anything MC wants. Their excitement and eagerness for certain things, only rivaled by the High Elves, makes MC feel a bit awkward. Since they're willing to do anything, he pulls a Chad move and tells them to put on some clothes. Even though it's part of their culture, it's hard for him not to stare. As their neighbors, the Lamia soon started cooperating with them, often working as their couriers to ferry goods between the Great Tree Village and the surrounding nations, as well as just helping out around the village. Back at the demonic territory, plot finally begins to happen as three girls convince a shadowy figure that the Great Tree Village isn't actually so good after all, and is instead holding Florum hostage. The figure, Princess Yuri, resolves to destroy MC's village and supposedly free Florum. The day starts with some noble girls assuring Princess Yuri the village is gathering forces and is likely planning something foul. For example, they may be convincing Florum to stay there so they can use her as a hostage if they need to. They advise gathering troops in the Demon Kingdom immediately, and she agrees. "We must defeat that village and save Florum," she declares. Back in the Great Tree Village, Florum meanwhile is using her magic to levitate pages in the air, when she gets a visit from her father Bizzle Chrome. He teleports into a green magic circle and apologizes for bothering her while she's busy. She denies this, however, saying she's just been put in charge of the village's accounting. Florum asks why her father came to see her, and is told their princess is gathering troops to prepare for a military campaign. At this, her papers fall out of the air in surprise. "Our princess is doing that?" she asks, bewildered. After all, Princess Yuri never seemed like that type. Her father explains, while she was gone, some of Yuri's followers have taken the opportunity to fill her head with lies and half-truths. Rosalind, second daughter of the Gritch family, Clacase, fourth daughter of the Bugle family, and Roju, second daughter of the Mammonrose family. Three girls who are known for being power-hungry simpletons. Florum asks her father where exactly they plan to attack. He hesitates for a bit, and with a bit of hopeless exasperation in his voice and sweat running down his back, reveals they're going to attack the Great Tree Village. Shocked, Florum questions what stupid food they're eating that's giving the girls such ridiculous ideas. After all, she's even provided reports of the members of the village. All powerful creatures that are each the equivalent of a small mercenary force at the very least. But Bizzle tells her those reports were so ridiculously overwhelming people began to think they were unrealistic, or just outright exaggerations. He tried to have the Demon Lord put a stop to this blunder, but he's far too soft on his own daughter. Florum asks if she should go and knock some sense into it, but her father tells her they'd likely be expecting that, and it might just end up creating a misunderstanding, and get her labeled as an enemy of the demonic kingdom. He says other than doing that, she should do anything to stop them from mobilizing. It'll be a horrible mistake. Florum naturally agrees and asks her father when exactly they'll be mobilizing. "Tomorrow," he informs her, gravely. "Tomorrow?" she shouts. "That's ridiculous." Bizzle nods and thinks for a moment, before suggesting they should ask someone from this village to route their forces. The princess has only gathered a measly 300, and not even Spartans at that. If they rout those soldiers, they might be able to crush their fighting spirit right from the start. However, if they're careless about which villagers they share this information with, well, then things could get really out of hand. The demonic kingdom might even be annihilated. Which is, of course, a problem. In other words, they decide Florum has to show the warmongers the difference in military strength, without actually mobilizing the village's forces. The next day, the soldiers march out for war, but are easily stopped in their tracks by three figures. Three Lamia, who can't believe they're going to get 10 boxes of apples just for throwing a few trees around. They wonder if they should be punishing these invaders a bit more. Before them, Rosalind Clackace and Roja tremble in fear, looking at the logs embedded in the ground, their own forces on their knees begging for their lives. And can you guess where these three girls end up? If you answered, joining MC's village, you've been paying attention. They pay him a visit, but are completely frozen and nearly unable to say a word. Florum explains they've had a complete change of heart, wishing to join their village. She says they're now ready to work themselves to death. Or rather, they're ready to work like their lives depend on it, she corrects, making the three girls' faces turn blue. MC observes this and says they're a bit too hopeless looking, like they've accepted their lives are over. Or something along those lines. Like college students realizing how much student debt they've got. Totally not relatable. Anyways, Florum assures him it's fine since they're her acquaintances, so, for the time being, she's going to have them work for her. If they do something bad, she says, MC can have them disposed of. That's, kind of scary, MC remarks. But now that that's out of the way, he says, who's the other girl over there sitting on a giant throne? The girl in question is of course Princess Yuri, who was apparently worried about Florum's living conditions here in the village. That's why she sent troops. Florum goes over to her, telling MC he shouldn't give her special treatment. She asks him to put her to work just like the others, letting her experience the same things as her. Of course, this is a bit difficult for him to imagine, given she's literally sitting on a random throne in the middle of his village. He has her show them around. When MC is gone, Florum tells the other girls if they work hard, this little incident will be swept under the rug. But she advises them to keep this little incident a secret from the rest of the village, so they should keep their identities a secret. They go on a tour, where they see the various sights and run into the beast folk children, who Yuri takes a liking to. They also run into the high elves and eat many apples in their orchard, where the girls begin to talk like nobles, much to Florum's annoyance. But with a single death stare, they all act like it was nothing, while Rhea looks on confused. Later in the day, they visit the town hall and meet Lasti. While Yuri greets her normally, her other companions remain far back. They still can't believe how demon nobles are literally living in the middle of nowhere like this, thinking they'll be the laughingstock of the country once they return. The girls decide to wait and try to find a chance to escape. Of course, their attempts are not successful. The first time, they sneak out at night, only to run into the Inferno Wolves. The second time, they scale a low wall only to meet one of Zabutan's kin. Needless to say, they faint each time. Finally, having learned their lesson, they eagerly set to work for Florum, working like their lives depend on it so they aren't disposed of. All the while, MC watches, glad they're working hard but still a bit, shall we say, slightly uncomfortable with threatening someone to work for you. However, this just means Florum can split up the mountain of office work she had to deal with. She also takes Princess Yuri out to play with the Inferno Wolves, where she's surprised to see such dangerous creatures living peaceful lives. She's surprised such a world exists out of the demonic kingdom, since she'd always lived such a sheltered and ignorant life. Yuri feels bad about trying to bring war and conflict to such a peaceful place, and confesses she was just worried about Florum. She thought her friend had become a hostage, and was also concerned her friend had stopped being as close to her. The girls finally reconnect, and there's soon the obligatory dinner scene. Everyone seems to enjoy it. The next day, Yuri goes to help out with the farm work, joining the demi-humans with her own followers. They're a bit hesitant, but the beast folk kids are more than excited to show them around, the group having a good time despite the difficult manual work. Accompanied by Senna, they plant and harvest a bunch of stuff before eating lunch together. After this, Yuri has to return to the demonic kingdom for quite obvious reasons, but she promises to return. Senna hands her some bread they made, using the wheat they harvest together. The beast folk kids crowd around her too, all quite sad to see her go. When she asks if her followers want to return with her, it's shown they've gotten quite addicted to the delicious food around here, choosing to stay at the village instead. Bizzle and Yuri teleport out, while Florum watches everything happily. At the Demon Lord's castle, Lord Galgardo asks Bizzle about his daughter, wondering why Yuri has been acting quite differently ever since her return. It's like she's grown dignified all of a sudden, actually finding things to do. However, Galgardo is worried she's gotten even more distant from him and hasn't made time to even talk to him. Bizzle advises him not to worry, however, since it's natural for someone in her standing to eventually grow up, taking an interest in politics and diplomacy before long. Children grow into adults before you know it, he says. However, his words to Galgardo sound like something about losing your, shall we say, innocence, and he gets fired up. He wants to know who this man is. Bizzle tells him this attitude is going to make her hate him one day, suggesting they get ready for their next meeting so he can make a good impression on his daughter. At the village, much later, they're taking storage of their excess harvest, deciding to send the surplus to the Vario's Dragon Girl's parents. The legendary Dragon Emperor Doze and Hurricane Dragon Raymalin. MC and the Dragon Girls head out to their various destinations, dropping off their merch and even helping a few people along the way. When MC goes north with Akurin, they run into a group of dark elves who also want to move into the Great Tree Village. Led by Ya, they're referred to as mountain elves. They can all use fire and are meat eaters, much like the other high elves at the village. If you know what I mean. She, too, shares a sob story about their reasons and essentially guilt trips him into accepting them. He says they'll be happy to have them, much to the girl's excitement. Unfortunately, even though they're hunters, the prey around here is much too strong for them. When he consoles their leader, she joins to watch him make pottery. Of course, this happens to be the girl's specialty, so he sends them out to find and make clay cups and plates. The next day, the High Elves report they've found an entrance to a new dungeon in the north. They want his permission to survey it, and he tells them not to do anything too drastic. A group of High Elves, Inferno Wolves, and Lizard Folk head out there while MC takes the chance to relax in the baths. Of course, just like Good Luck, girls seem to follow him everywhere, and Florum and a few lizard men end up accosting the three demon girls, who are hoping to get a chance to get closer to MC. Florum tells them they're literally the lowest ranking members in the village hierarchy, advising them not to try anything like that in the future, or they'll be disposed of. Before long, the dungeon survey party returns. The group recommends they send an extermination party north, explaining a viper was seen there. The girls say they must defeat it, since its meat is incredibly delicious. It's essential to the survival of our race. They cry. The mountain Elfia informs him, however, this is because the meat is said to improve husband-wife relations and bless you with children, since it fills your body with vitality. Upon saying that, she too joins the other High Elves, blushing as she envisions her future with MC. Flabbergasted, he says they should talk it over with the other residents of the town. And thus, autumn fades away as winter approaches again. MC visits Rue, who has gotten ill recently. She assures them it'll be alright, and that she's just having a slight cold. When Senna hears about her symptoms, she tells them she actually knew someone from her village who experienced similar things. And what happened? MC asks, anxious. Everyone leans in. Well, we congratulated them on the baby. The story continues that following spring, with the sun shining down on the happy citizens of the Great Tree Village. The vegetables all look so much brighter and more colorful after sunbathing for a while. MC calls everyone over for break time so they can have lunch, and Senna offers to set everything up for them. Hiraka thanks her, but as he's about to follow, he notices a tomato plant that's grown a bit too tall and stops to trim it a little. After all this time, he's gotten much more knowledgeable than when he first started farming. MC looks over at the other plants until a voice calls out to him. It's Rue, who's out in the sun with a white parasol. She beckons him over, saying it's break time. The two of them go and sit on a blanket under a nearby tree, beside the other girls. Rue advises him to take breaks himself, and he tells her, when he looks out at the crops, he just can't help himself. His wife smiles and gestures for him to give her his cup, so she can summon a little bit of ice. There's a brief glow and a few ice cubes appear in his drink. Watching this, he wonders about how magic is so great. It's all basic stuff, of course, but it makes him feel much better already. Rue tells him if he works too hard, he'll collapse, but he brushes it off since he'll be fine. More importantly, he says, is it alright for her to be walking around? After all, she's got a child coming along. But Rue just replies she's okay now and she's actually heard it's good to get some exercise and still. Obviously, she can't push herself too hard, but she's heard from the other girls in the village that you should still keep your body in shape. In fact, Rue heard a few of the ogre-maid girls had actually given birth themselves, which really assures MC, since he doesn't know much about this topic. It's still strange for him to think that she has a child inside her belly, and he wonders what it must feel like for her. In fact, the other girls are also curious too. That night, Senna, Hakurin, Lasti, Ria, Florim, and Antia are all gathered around the table with Rue, asking about how she feels. Rue thinks for a minute and says it's like she's holding 2 heads of cabbage in her tummy. Tia imagines always having 2 heads of cabbage in her stomach and remarks it must make her feel quite heavy. On the other hand, Ria's cheeks turn a little red as she calls Rue lucky. Senna wonders whether it's a boy or a girl, which makes Hakurin ask about any methods to determine the child's biology. Florim and Ann meanwhile offer to help if there's anything they can do to make her feel more comfortable. Rue ponders this for a little but informs them she's feeling a lot better now, and the only thing bothering her is that she can't drink any alcohol, which elicits an exasperated sigh from the rest of the girls. The next morning, as Zabuton begins making a ton of baby clothes, the angels report to MC with a request. It turns out, the other girls in the village feel bad since they're drinking while Rue can't. Unfortunately, they can't bring themselves to quit. Whenever they think about eating without alcohol, their will begins to crack, so they ask MC to sell off all the alcohol instead. At this point, the only option is to remove the cause of their suffering. Hiraku advises them to calm down since they'll definitely end up regretting it if they sell all the alcohol. Besides, it's not something they can easily make a lot of quickly. He tells them the taste of alcohol changes the longer you let it age after making it, so he's sure if they can somehow hold off now, then it'll taste better in the future. Thus, the girls have something positive to look forward to. This decision has unexpected consequences. Or rather, consequences MC forgot about. You see, the dwarves were the ones making alcohol, and now that everyone suddenly tried to stop drinking, the dwarves were worried they'd done something wrong and people no longer liked their product. MC does his best to calm them down, explaining the situation to them. The dwarves had previously considered slowing down their production due to a lack of demand, but since they're sure everyone would be even more thirsty after their holdout, they decide to increase production to live up to everyone's expectations. Thus, the days go by. MC visits Rue to see how she's feeling, and she tells him she's not inside because she's feeling sick or anything. The sun just happens to be really strong, so she's playing it safe. After all, she's a vampire. Their attention then shifts to Rue's belly, which has gotten a lot bigger than before. They're sure the child will be along soon. MC sees some flowers on the table nearby and asks her where she got them from, and is told Tia and the angels came to visit her and brought it with them. It was found on a faraway mountain, having the ability to release cold air and cool the room. Just then, Yi shows up with some herbs to promote good health, and Lasti appears with a gem that's said to help with magic recovery. More girls keep showing up to offer gifts to Rue, and brings some pudding she made. Ria brings a good luck charm wreath, Hakurin offers to peel a few apples, and Flora brings tomato and tofu miso soup. Even other members of their farm show up, such as Kuro and Yuki with a rabbit they hunted, Zabuton's offspring with baby clothes, and the lizard men who offer their own blood to make her stronger. Unfortunately, her teeth aren't able to pierce their scales. That evening, while MC and Rue look out into the sunset in a room filled with presents, he finds a hammer which Donovan claimed would come in handy, but he has no idea how a hammer would be useful. Just then, Rue grows quiet and places a hand on her belly. It's time! The house is immediately filled with commotion as everyone rushes to help with the birth. The maids bring platters of hot water and plenty of towels, while Senna remains by Rue's side and holds her hands. MC sits alone in a side room, illuminated by only a single candle, hoping for things to go alright. In such a situation, he can't help but feel a little panic, but there's nothing left for him to do to help out. That is, except for going outside and visiting the place where the two first met, beneath the great tree. On his first night here, he watched the 2 moons in the night sky from this very place. Back then, he was alone and wanted to live somewhere by himself, away from everyone else. But now, he has others. Time passes, as MC sits in a daze, reminiscing about his past. Before he realizes it, it's soon morning and he returns to the house. When he enters Rue's room, he's greeted by all of the girls, who've gathered there to celebrate the occasion. Everything went great, and Rue is holding a baby in her arms. She tells him to go and hold him, but he's freaking out a bit as the girls offer him as much advice as they can. He's surprised by how much the baby is moving, and when the baby smiles, the other girls mention he's the father of the kid, which immediately makes MC realize he's indeed become a father, a feeling of pride settling in. Back in his original world, he was suffering from an illness, and he hopes the kid would never have to experience that. Rue reaches up and places her hand on his arm, saying she's sure they'll be able to raise him well together. And thus, even more time passes as a week blinks before his eyes. His son was named Alfred, and he's technically a half-vampire. MC looks back at the great tree, thinking again about how much things have changed and the community has grown. It started out as a place for just himself, but he's become the mayor of an entire population and a father. Speaking of which, he needs to do something to thank the villagers for their kindness. They've worked so hard to help him build everything after all. Hirako calls a meeting with the other girls, saying they need to set up a new system in their village. Reward medals, which are given to everyone who worked hard to build their village. Flora asks what they're used for, and MC tells her they can be used to get basically anything they want, like goods and stuff. Like money! MC figured they would eventually need a system of currency. Currently, everything has been passing through him, but he's been planning a way for people to more effectively trade. After all, it would be easier instead of bargaining, since people would have a better way of understanding value. For now, however, they'll just be vouchers and each member would get 3. Some traded them in immediately, while others decorated their rooms with them. The most popular were trinkets or furniture that MC had to make by hand. Everything was going well until one of the young beast folk asked MC for a baby, instantly catching the ears of just about everyone in town. Hirako of course declines since he doesn't think the little girl knows what she's asking for. Instead, he takes them out to play and let them be the mayor for the day. A little while after that, it was finally time for a big feast to celebrate the birth of his son. Everyone in the village parties together, enjoying themselves. He's a little worried they'll get too drunk, after all. The only thing remaining is the mystery of Donovan's hammer, which he told Rue to bring to the festival. This becomes clear as the dwarves come in carrying giant barrels of alcohol, a special new kind of wine made just for the occasion. They use it to break open the lid, and the festivities continue. He never thought he'd be cracking open a barrel of wine in this new world, and calls everyone else over to partake. All of the other characters they'd met along the way join them, from the red slime to the Dragon King. Unfortunately, Rue still can't drink since she's got to feed the child milk, so Donovan promises to keep some alcohol and let it age for her. Speaking of age, yes, this is all legal. At the Demon Kingdom Keep, the demons are having a meeting about the latest news from the Great Tree Village. Realizing they will likely be unable to challenge them, they decide it would be ideal to maintain amicable relations, or even marry someone over to ensure friendly ties. Demon Lord Galgardo, of course, is very defensive of his daughter and swears never to marry her to anyone. Elsewhere, the merchant Goron makes preparations to send his own congratulations, wanting to ensure their relationship with the village continues. As MC looks out over the town, he thinks about everything that has happened so far, like it's all been one wonderful dream. The scene from the opening of the first episode appears, telling us all of it has been real. The girls approach him for another meeting, where they discuss matters of more people joining, and they discuss setting up a new village to handle the influx of new people, with the girls resolving to do their best. The village had helped them before, and they want to do their part to help others. Everyone decides to do what they can to share their paradise, and naturally, perhaps have hundreds of kids with Hirako or something.